Hello, everyone. I've spent most of the day trying to put together some photos to illustrate the blood flow on Darlie's nightgown, as somebody requested yesterday. It really does tell an incredibly important story. Um, wow, that really makes me look pale. Um, First of all, we'd have to understand exactly what it is that the prosecution is wanting us to believe about what happened. Okay, so the prosecution is contending that Darlie staged this entire crime scene, that she stabbed herself, slit her own throat, even to go so far as to slit her own throat and embed the necklace in the wound for whatever reason. Um, Ran down an alley to deposit a sock, also as part of the supposed staging. Now, the sock had blood from both Devin and Damon, but there was no, there was no blood flow, or drippings or anything like that going down the alley where Darlie supposedly ran to deposit the sock. So, they would have us believe that she did all of these things basically in a minute or less. And we know that based on the timeline, based on how long Damon lived. Devin died fairly quickly. I don't really want to get into all that right now, but Damon lived for between 8 and 9 minutes. We don't have an exact time. He lived for between 8 and 9 minutes, so he lived a longer period of time, and he was able to get up and move around and get to his mommy initially. And as a matter of fact, we'll go into this right now. Let me get this up and I'll get you the exact quote. This is from one of Darlie's statements. She says, "I started to get sleepy. The next thing I wake up and I feel a pressure on me. I feel Damon press on my right shoulder and heard him cry." Okay, so Darlie was laying on her left-ish side on the couch, on her back, angled towards the left is how she was laying on the couch. No, I do not think that she slept through this. I don't know why people say that. To me, it's obvious that Darlie lost consciousness at some point in time. And that could have been from any of many reasons. She may have lost consciousness due to loss of blood. It may have been from shock. It may have been from oxygen deprivation. There's just absolutely no telling. But she was obviously conscious for some amount of time because she fought with somebody. And I'm not saying she said she fought with somebody. I'm saying it's obvious that she fought with somebody when you look at the bruising on her arms that was left over and the defensive wounds that she has. People will say, well, the boys were stabbed so methodically, and I've even heard them go so far as to talk about Devin being completely impaled and knife chipping concrete underneath and ridiculous nonsense like that. There are no exit wounds on Devin Routier's back. None whatsoever. Now, he was a little boy, so I'm sure that the knife did penetrate deeply, but there's just no reason to make these horrible crimes even worse than they already were. But Devin did die fairly quickly. Damon, on the other hand, he was stabbed in the back. We can get into more detail on that later if necessary, but in a nutshell, between blood loss and his lungs would have been filling up with blood slowly. And so initially he would have been able to get up and move around fairly easily, and then it would have become more and more difficult for him to speak and move around as it got closer to him passing away. But anyway, Damon lived for 8 to 9 minutes, okay? So he would have had to have been stabbed for a certain amount of time. At least she may have very well been drugged. I know that they checked for a couple of different drugs that weren't in her system, but there were other chemicals that could have been used. But he would have had to have been, at least seconds or maybe a minute would have had to have elapsed since he was stabbed before he was able to get over there and put his hand on his mommy and wake her up, okay? And then Darlie saw the silhouette of a man off in their kitchen area, and she instinctively got up and started to follow him. Damon instinctively started trailing behind her. Of course, as she's coming to and starting to realize things are really wrong here, she told him to wait, and that's why Damon was located in a different position from where he went to sleep that night. And I'll show you here in a minute on the map where he went to sleep and where he was located, but he had initially followed behind her. So he was able to speak, and he was able to walk initially. As time went on, it obviously became more and more difficult for him. But let's just think about this logically for a minute. And like I said, I'm going to show you some photos here in a minute of her wounds and whatnot. But we know that her neck was slashed. We know that the necklace got caught on the knife. That caused the necklace to get embedded into the wound. And that also caused the knife to skip. And then the slash continues on over here. And then what a lot of people don't realize is there's also a stab wound down close to her left armpit. And that's not a continuation of the slash. That's a stab wound. And so Darlie did have defensive wounds. And Devin did too. As a matter of fact, Devin had a slash on his arm from where he must have brought up one arm to defend himself as somebody was attacking him. But, you know, Darlie is a fairly small woman overall. She's not very tall, but she's a full-grown adult, and she would have been able to protect herself, you know, a lot better than a little 5- and 6-year-old little boys could. I mean, they wouldn't have stood a chance against a full-grown adult of any size attacking them. So, you know, Darlie does have defensive wounds. She just was able to put up a much bigger fight than those little boys were. And that's why I think the stab wound is on her arm because she was fighting, and then there's another stab wound over here on her shoulder because she was fighting. But let's go on into this slideshow here where I've got some pictures collected, and I'll show y'all some things to look at. But be thinking about her wound, and if she was actually up, running around, actively staging a crime scene, running down an alley, depositing a sock, coming back, slashing her own neck, stabbing herself in the arm, somehow or another beating herself up so badly that she had bruises that had formed all the way from her wrist all the way up to her armpit, on the hands, on the back of her hands and everything. And there's very little time for her to have done that in, and they know that based on how long Damon lived, okay? So he would have been stabbed, a short amount of time would have elapsed before he could get to his mommy and wake her up to begin with. And then she saw the intruder, turned on the light, saw that she was covered in blood, saw little Devin laying in the middle of the floor, screamed for Darren, and then she's on the phone with 911. So the 911 call lasts 5 minutes and 44 seconds, okay? Once the paramedics arrived, they were actually outside the house for 2 minutes because the police officers were supposedly clearing the scene, they said, before it was safe for them to go in there and work on Damon. So, you know, that's 5 minutes and 44 seconds. That gets you up to, you know, 7 minutes and 45 seconds approximately, and that's not even if you're counting the time that would have elapsed from when he was attacked to when he woke his mommy up. So, considering he died at a maximum 9 minutes later, she had very, very little time, maybe a minute, even less, to actually do all of these ridiculous things that they're claiming she did. And furthermore, generally when people stage a crime scene, they actually refer to the staging when they're giving their statements, and she never did. But let's get on with this presentation here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right. Okay, this is a layout of the house. As you can see, you got the entry, living room, dining room. Everything happened back here in this family room. And you can see they have Darlie on this couch. That is the couch she was laying on, but keep in mind she was laying on her back and somewhat leaning towards her left-hand side. Devin was over here. Damon was sleeping over in this area, but Damon was actually found laying over here. And again, that's because he initially was following behind Darlie when she came in here to find the intruder. Okay, and on the next slide, this was the prosecution's blood map. Okay, and you can see that the yellow dots are Devin, and that's very, very localized because he did not move. That is where he was sleeping. That's where he was attacked. He died very quickly, so most of Devin's blood is there. The red spots are Damon's tested blood, and there's a lot of it here where he was sleeping and even along the couch and here as he was going to get his mommy. And Darlie is green blood. And you can see that there's some here where she was sleeping. There's a lot of it over here in this area where she was tending to Damon. And then there's a whole lot of it in here at the sink area because she did go to the sink to wet towels to come back and put on the boys. Now, just to interject this right quick, I've had people say that. Why would she wet towels? You know, I'm sure they didn't have a whole lot of time to really be thinking about what to do as they were frantic. But I will say this, my little nephew slipped and fell and busted his chin wide open He wasn't doing anything but just standing there. It was raining, and he slipped and he busted his chin open. And that's what I got, was wet rags to put on there. And it's like I said, I didn't have enough time to really think about why I was doing it, but I guess just in my subconscious common sense mind, I was thinking, if you put a dry towel on a wound that's bleeding, that's just going to cause the blood to seep into the towel. Whereas a wet towel, you could actually apply pressure and hopefully stop the bleeding. And I'm assuming that's probably along the lines of what they were thinking. But it just happened so fast, they were just absolutely frantic. And all the X's on there, by the way, all those X's, that's blood that was never even tested. I mean, this crime scene was just absolutely covered in blood. That's one picture of Darlie in the hospital. And it was shortly after surgery. You can see the slash wound to her neck. Now this one is a close-up, okay? So you can see the slash coming down in this direction. And then pay attention on her left shoulder here. There are no wounds on her left shoulder. The wounds are actually down here below the left shoulder. The continuation slash is right here. And then you can even see here, this is where the additional stab wound was. And this is clear down by her armpit, okay? So, keeping that in mind. Okay, what do we know about gravity? I think most of us have finished grade school, but to actually get the Webster's definition, gravity is the force that causes things to fall towards the earth. That means towards the earth, obviously not away from it. Okay, so if she's standing up, running around, staging a crime scene, doing all these things, shouldn't all of the blood on her nightshirt have been at the height of her wound and below? I would certainly think so. But that's not what we see. This is Darlie's nightshirt. This would be her left shoulder. Again, you think about it. She had a slash wound coming across here, coming down into here, a stab wound over here. And I'm being told, we're all being told, that she was upright, running around, doing all these crazy things, staging a crime scene. But look at all this blood up here on her neck. All around the neck, up here on the left shoulder, and even furthermore, when you get to the back of her shirt, look at this. This is her left shoulder. And you can see, I think you can see how thick that blood is right there. That blood is incredibly thick. I mean, it actually pooled there over a certain amount of time. And to me, that, this shirt matches Darlie's statement. I don't understand how on earth that blood could have basically traveled north and up and over her shoulder if she was actually up running around when there was no wound in that location to cause it. That's a close-up. We got a close-up here of it. And again, you can see how thick it is right there. And then it begins to trickle down. Obviously, it's hard to absorb it anymore in that area. This is her pillow without the pillowcase on it. The spot is saliva, where, again, I'm assuming this is probably from where she was unconscious for that brief amount of time. This I just wanted to point out. In a lot of these photos on the crime scene, there is a lot, you'll see a lot of this. This pillowcase looks maroon here. It's basically a dark red, it's a maroon color. And they would show you that and say, there's not any blood on this pillow. Well, it doesn't show up on there so well whenever it's maroon. The couch is the same way. When you look at various photos of the crime scene, in one, the couches look almost black. And those are the ones they like to show when they say that there's no blood on them. And then in other ones, they're aqua. And other ones, it's just a bright, bright teal where it's almost glowing. And it just shows the prosecution manipulating, photos and coloring and whatnot to show what it is they're wanting to show versus the truth. They said there was no blood on the pillow. There most certainly is blood. There's blood right there on her pillow. Okay? Now, there wouldn't be as much blood on her pillow or as much blood on the couch because her shirt obviously absorbed most of it. Once again, in gravity. Okay, and this was just to show you, remember she was laying on her left side. So that's going to place her left side, her left shoulder area is the lowest point of gravity. If she's laying there on the couch, that is where the blood would flow to, just due to the basic principles of gravity that we've all heard of since grade school, Now, if you were to actually line up the pillowcase with her pillow and imagining the pillowcase is on the pillow, this makes sense. Her head would have been here, her mouth would have been here, her shoulder would have been around here, and then all of that blood would have began to trickle off down onto the pillowcase. And again, you can see the thick blood pooling, and it's beginning to drip down. What wasn't absorbed in her shirt ended up coming down onto the pillowcase. But the prosecution didn't want to show you that. And notice how bright that pillowcase is. So you have to really, really dig to find the information that is true. And I just won't even get into just how horrible I think that this investigation was against her. That's the actual flyer that sums up everything that we've just talked about. And I will put that in the comments section so that people can see it better. But, again, just looking up here at the top, look at where her wounds are here. Down here, below her left shoulder. So there should not have been any blood coming up over her left shoulder. And it certainly shouldn't have been dripping around over to the other side if she was standing up, running down an alley, depositing a sock, cleaning. It was just ludicrous, all the things that they said that they think that she did. And I'll go back and show you these slides just one more time to see, because it's important to, let's see. There we are again. If she would have been upright, running around staging a crime scene, the blood flow should have been from here down. It should have been from here down on her nightshirt. And to me, that, overall blood flow does not lie. That is forensic evidence. That's forensic evidence that proves that Darlie's statement was true. There's just absolutely no way that it would have literally traveled north and hopped up over her shoulder and started seeping down her back, for heaven's sake, if she was standing up, running around, doing all of these crazy things that they were trying to make us believe that she did. It makes just no sense whatsoever. Never mind the fact that, there's not enough time for her to have hardly done it all. Again, that's the view of her shirt. This would be her right shoulder over here. This would be her left shoulder. And you can kind of see that there's an overall movement of blood coming in this direction. That's actually what got my attention first. And I can't take complete credit for this. So my friend Lawrence Wilson was pointing this out. We were looking at these photos. And I just started noticing, why is it that the worst of her wound is up here, but it seems like all this blood's coming over here to this side? That just doesn't make any sense to me. And then I got to looking at it closer, and I noticed that on the back, and it's just crazy. To me, it proves that her statement was the truth. She was telling the truth. She was laying there. She was attacked. She lost consciousness. And then what blood did not get absorbed by her t-shirt ultimately ended up starting to flow off onto the pillowcase. And then by that time, she got up and she was walking around, and complete and utter chaos ensued after that. But to me, that is forensic evidence that really just can't be refuted. Unless you want to rewrite science books. Again, you can see how this lines up and makes perfect sense with the statements that she gave to the police. It certainly doesn't corroborate the prosecution's contention that she was up running around doing a bunch of this crazy stuff. One episode of the Forensic Files that I saw was so ludicrous, they actually were trying to say that she was up using a vacuum cleaner while she was on the phone with 911 because there's all this hoopla about vacuum cleaner is in one room and one picture, and the cord is wrapped up all nice and neat how it should be, and then in the next picture it's in the kitchen and it's turned over and it's laying on its side and the cord's all unraveled. And I'm guessing that probably happened when the paramedics got there, would be my guess, and they were trying to help Damon, or maybe the police did it on purpose, I don't know. But what on earth would Darlie Lynn have possibly thought that she could clean up at that crime scene with a vacuum cleaner, for heaven's sake? A vacuum cleaner, she would have been worried about hairs or fibers or anything like that because she lived in the house. You can't clean up blood with a vacuum cleaner on white carpet. That's just not possible. But it's just ludicrous. And more of this stuff that I see, the more it disgusts me. I guess I really can't say much more than that. you can't argue with gravity. Just like Ross said, you can't argue with gravity. Gravity is gravity, and that's just the way it is. We're not living on the moon, we're living on Earth. Uh, and yeah, if you were to get like a ketchup bottle, for example, and squirt water on yourself in the area that that wound was on Darlie, and then walk around and squirt more, and walk around and squirt more, you'd see an overall flow going downward. You're not going to see it going up over your neck. You'd have to lay down or hang upside down from a jungle gym or something along that line in order to make that happen. And we know that she certainly didn't have time for that, and there was not a teeter hang-up that was admitted into evidence in the case. So, to me, this just is more proof, and that's forensic evidence, that Darlie Lynn was attacked. There was an intruder in the house, and she was left for dead. Your neck being sliced, that's an incredibly serious wound. And I mean, in most cases, when your neck is sliced like that, you're gone. I mean, there are very few people that actually live through that. I know Tommy Sells was a notorious serial killer, and he had attacked two young girls on the same night and slit their throats, both of them. One of them lived and the other one did not. But it's all just a matter of if they hit the jugular or if they don't. And thankfully, in Darlie's case, she was wearing that necklace, and it caught the knife. And if it weren't for that, she wouldn't be here, and Darren would be on death row, because nobody ever wants to acknowledge the fact that random horrible murders can happen without it actually being a family member anymore, despite the fact that we know it happens according to FBI statistics. But that's what I've got for now on the blood flow, and I hope that that was informative and helped you guys out a little bit. But to me, that's a big key factor that just can't be refuted, and I would love for one of the prosecutors to try to explain this away to me. So far, nobody's taken me up on it. I think that's pretty obvious why. But anyway, I'm going to log off of here for now, and I hope that this helped clear up some things. If y'all have any questions, let me know, and I will post the actual flyer down here in the comments so that you can look at it all together on the one piece. Again, thanks a lot, y'all. I really appreciate all your support for Darlie Lynn. Have a great day.